welcome to Attollo's Professional Development Series. I know it looks a little bit different, but I promise we're still in the office. This morning we have Sam Bressi, who is the CEO of the Community Foundation here in Lancaster County. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So just to get started, very simple question. Where are you from and how did you find yourself in Lancaster?
Well, I grew up in a small coal mining town, Shamokin, Pennsylvania.
Shamokin.
Yeah, it's one of those places where you have to escape. It's like it's like Alcatraz. You escape and you don't go back for weekend holidays. But it's a rough little place. Not a lot of opportunity. But I left there and went to Penn State and kind of never looked back.
Very cool. And now I'm not from the area, so where in relative to Lancaster is Shamokin?
It's about 2 hours directly north of here in the mountains.
It's not terribly far, but far enough that you escaped.
Escaped, went west, and then ended up in Connecticut, and then Harrisburg, and York, and Lancaster.
Oh, talk to me about that journey. What did you study at Penn State, and how did you find yourself going west, and then Connecticut, and then Lancaster?
I actually studied health at Penn State. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I'm almost 60. I don't know if I know exactly what I want to be, but I ended up getting a health degree, and there's a whole story there, but I won't go into it. And I got a job. So things changed fast for me. I graduated. I was actually married in July of '88. I graduated in August of '88, and my son, Justin, who changed my life, was born in October of '88, and in the middle of that, we moved to Connecticut, and I took a job at a health performance company on a corporate site at Pratt Whitney Aircraft. So we stayed in Connecticut and kind of got settled for a while and ended up coming to Harrisburg, and I worked at Hershey Medical Center as a hospital administrator for 5 years.
And during that time is when you got your master's at Penn State.
That's when I got my master's. Yeah, I did my MBA at night. So I'm a guitar player. I was.
Oh, yes.
So I was playing guitar in a band. I had a little baby, another little baby on the way, and full-time job as a hospital administrator, managing a university fitness center, cardiac rehab program, and some other sports medicine clinic on the campus of Hershey Med. And I did my MBA at night through Penn State.
Interesting. So management has always been a part of your career, but how did you go from like the healthcare industry to nonprofit work here in Lancaster?
I think, and maybe this is the case with some people, but with me, everything, I kind of tripped into things. I found things that it was less me finding things and more things finding me. So I had my MBA and I had an offer to kind of do more at Hershey Med, but I really, there are 5,000 employees on the campus. It was just like I felt like I was lost in a sea of people. I really wanted to be in a small organization where I could make decisions and make things happen quickly. And so I kind of knew that about myself. And I applied for this job at the Susan Burns Health Education Center as their CEO. And I didn't get it. And so I was kind of like a little bummed because I thought this is perfect. I really thought I could do some great stuff there. And I got a call that the person they had hired kind of just, something happened that it didn't work out. And so I was the second choice, which kind of, kind of puts a little chip on your shoulder when you're the second choice. So I negotiated a little harder on the way in. And I ended up, I was going to stay there 3 to 5 years. I really wanted to build it. I didn't want to fall in love with the job, but I fell in love with the job. I was there 12 years to the day. It gave me the opportunity to stay local, to work local. And my kids were young and I was kind of a workaholic. I was a 60+ hour person. And I started coaching soccer. My wife signed my son up for soccer, and she came home and said, Justin's going to play soccer. And I said, well, yeah, that's great. Like, who's coaching? And well, that's that was the hit. The catch was I was going to be coaching. I hadn't played soccer because we didn't have soccer. But I was an athlete in high school, and so anyway, I picked up soccer. I ended up coaching soccer for 12 years.
Whoa.
Coached my son and my daughter, got certified, got super into soccer for those 12 years, and I spent 12 years to the day at the Health Education Center. I left on my 12th anniversary.
Very punctual.
Very punctual. The number 12 must mean something, I'm not sure.
So then in 2008 is when you joined the Lancaster Community Foundation.
Yeah, so, and there's a little transitional story there, because I formed a private board. I worked with a lot of CEOs, and I decided I wanted to buy a business. Oh. So I left on June 1st of 2007, and my intent was to buy a business, run a business. I had kind of people ready to do that, and I think, you know, again, fate got in the way, but I was very, very close in the fall to acquiring a business. And again, it's a long story, but it fell through. Right around Christmas, it fell through. And I was pretty beat up by that. And I had been working on it without pay. Yeah. I was fortunate my wife works and she had insurance, kept the kids on insurance, but it was really a challenging time. I'd say in the 10 months or whatever after I left the Health Education Center, that was my true MBA. When I went out on my own, and it was like all on me. It was like everybody will want to help you. If you ask somebody for help, and you can even direct them and give them kind of a way to help you. I didn't meet a single person who wasn't willing to sit with me, have coffee with me, and talk and put me in contact with people. But at the end of the day, nobody can do it for you. Yeah. You end up you have to grab the reins, you have to do it. And it didn't work out. So I was sitting with one of my people who always sat with me. His name's Dale Voorhees, and he's a great individual over in New York County. And he was a CEO of a company over there. And he said, "You need a job." And it was and then in 1 week after he said that, 3 people reached out to me who I respected greatly and pointed me in this direction. I said, I want to get out of the nonprofit sector. I wanted equity. So at that time, if you asked me what I wanted, well, I wanted equity. I wanted, when I closed the door on that chapter, I wanted to leave with like a chunk of, a
chunk of change.
A chunk of change. and that was kind of the goal. And I had friends who were doing this, so I was like, I can do this. And so I was kind of averse to the sector at the time, because you don't get equity in the sector. But I did learn something about myself, and that is if I could run a company that printed something or bent wire, and I could do that with 100 people and make $1 billion, I would be miserable.
True.
My at the core of who I am, I need to be making a difference in the community. I need to be plugged in directly. I need to be with people. I need to be looking at things and solving problems and creating opportunities for the broader community. Mm-hmm. So I learned that about myself. And my younger self would have said, get over it, get busy making money. But I instead ended up, I think I applied for this job at like 11:30. The application period was closing like at midnight that day, and I just
so not so punctual there.
Not so punctual, but 12 comes at 12 o'clock. I was around the due time. Anyway, I surprisingly, I really had no expectation that they would even talk to me, and I ended up getting a call, and I got the sense immediately that they had somebody, kind of lined up, and they were going through a process to get to that. A decision that they had already made. I think there's a lot of truth in that. But I walk in, and the person who was doing the pre-screening interviews I knew, and I'd worked with in my previous career. And so I ended up getting a second interview. I came in for the second interview, and I was kind of, at that time, I had been out of, and been on this quest for a business. And this was plan C or D. I was like, I had to kind of pump myself up, because I was not clear on what I wanted to do. And if you're not clear and you're not excited, you're probably not getting the position. So yeah. I walk into a room, and there is, as I come to know now, a who's who of Lancaster in this room. And fortunately, I didn't know who was who, and so I just kind of, I felt like I had nothing to lose. I felt like there was no, there was no little chance that this would work out. and I basically just told them what I thought. I had a kind of a pretty clear picture of, wow, here's what I experienced with the Community Foundation in York, and how I think we could do some things here differently. And then shockingly, I mean, I was probably the most surprised person. I got a call. It's like, hey, do you want to take this role? And I thought, okay, I'm not going to make the same mistake I made falling in love with the job and staying longer than I should. Best thing for my career would have been staying at the Health Education Center for 4 years and then move on. But the best thing for my family and my life was to stay for 12 years. And so I came here, and it's like, all right, this is something I can get in, I can dig into, I can really magnify the impact. There's something here that we can do. Really, it instantly went to kind of like how they were approaching their work, what they were focused on, and thought, yeah, 3 years, maybe 5 years max. And I not only fell in love with this job, and I don't think of it as a job, it's kind of like a calling.
That's the best kind of job.
But I fell in love with Lancaster. Mm-hmm. I think the city and this community, it's so unique. And I didn't think I could find that in Pennsylvania. But I found it, I found the passion, and here I am. It's been 17 years. Mm-hmm. And I think, I'm still young. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to make this, my last full-time gig, and I'll probably always work at something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be here for a while yet. I still have work to do.
I'm sensing this theme of resilience throughout different points of your life.
Well, yeah, I think that's a lot. I think I grew up in a home where you had to have resilience to survive. Mm-hmm. I went to Penn State, and after my first semester at Penn State, don't tell anybody. After my first semester, the counselor called me in and invited me to either go into the military, find a job, but not to come back. And so I was basically not invited back for my spring semester of my freshman year at Penn State. Wow. And I had a 1.3 cum, which is not a good number, apparently. So anyway, I had to go back. I went back, I did some work along the way. I went back in the summer, and I ended up graduating in 3 years and did summers. Mm. So I barely made it back in. I had to do part-time classes. And it was a little stressful, but a really good memory, oddly, being at Penn State's main campus in the summer that first year. Mm-hmm. And like there's 3,500 students, mm-hmm. and you have the campus, and you just get to know, you get a lot of peace. Yep. A lot of peace and a lot of time to like actually focus, lock in and do the work.
Absolutely. I also did summers at my university, and it was just so peaceful. And to your point, you really get to know the people on campus and get that sense of community, which seems to also be a theme in the work that you do. I'm trying to think of where I want to go next with our questions. So I guess on the topic of community, philanthropy is an essential part in strengthening our community, but it's not designed to replace the scale or stability of investments from like federal investments. Mm. So I guess my question...
I agree with that.
Thinking of how you've been in this role at the Lancaster Community Foundation for 17 years, and you've been in this world significantly longer, constantly different stakeholders are changing. So how can we navigate and prepare ourselves for the future in general, and how can we create sustainability in an organization when we're not always in control of where our money's coming from?
Yeah, wow, it's a big question, especially in a time like today. I like back up to your opening statement. I recently wrote something about that, mm-hmm. and the idea that we need to be more efficient federally, I totally agree with, and totally support. But doing it with thought and care, and doing it judiciously, and understanding mm-hmm. that there's not only an expense side of the ledger, there's an impact side. There's a value proposition. Mm-hmm. And so like, if you own a restaurant and you say, what's the quickest way to eliminate the most money out of the expense side of the ledger? It's really simple. I can do this in 1 hour in any company. You shut the lights off, you fire the employees, you say, go on your way, you close the business. You can zero out an expense side, but that makes no sense. You have to look at where those dollars are not only coming from, but where those dollars are going and what they're doing. And so philanthropy is a funny thing. You know, it started out as kind of a way for wealthy folks, Puritans, to kind of get rid of some of their guilt. It's like, okay, you know, because, you know, the Bible says, you know, it's easy for a rich man to go through the gates of heaven as it is for a camel to go through an eye of a needle. I think, don't quote me on Bible quotes. But, so I think there was this motivation to do really well financially first, and then it's like to relieve the pressure of the guilt of those who weren't. So it was designed from the beginning to help, but it wasn't designed as a transformational force. It has become, philanthropy has become a transformational force in some areas. But if you think about the core social issues every community faces, if you think about poverty, if you think about education, if you think about anything that you can put into the bucket of a social issue, what tends to happen in the U.S. is we, as a society, we take those social issues, wrap them up, and we hand them over to the nonprofit sector and say, hey, you guys go with this. You know, you can take care of that. We'll feed you some talent and we'll feed you some dollars. And we've done some really good things, but but it's been around the edges. And if we're really honest with ourselves, over the last 100 years, name one problem, societal problem, that philanthropy has fixed. I can't. But we've done really good things around the edges. So if society wants to really transform and fix things, take full advantage of opportunities, break down barriers, reduce inequities, you know, if that's the goal, the power of the real economy, the government, the business sector, and the nonprofit sector have to really be deployed thoughtfully and fully. And so, you know, I believe in philanthropy, but my first and foremost belief is that the businesses in any community, and in this community is no different, the businesses have a responsibility. And they have a responsibility to make money, to be profitable. They have a responsibility to treat their employees with dignity and respect and give them the opportunity to thrive. They have the responsibility to take care of their community, to be engaged in their broader community. And you know, from my humble opinion, before a dollar is given to philanthropy, all that should be happening before any money's given away. And so I look at the United Way's ALICE statistic. That's asset limited, income constrained, employed. So you don't have a lot of assets, you have limited assets. You don't have a big bank account, you don't have a lot of property. You're income constrained, you're not making a ton of money. You don't have cash flow coming in. You're living paycheck to paycheck. And you may even add time to that. You may be time constrained, where if you could have a set of hours that you could depend on, you maybe could do a little bit with education in advance, but you don't even have that. But you're employed. You're fully employed. There are 36%, a third of the people who use basic services like food, that are food insecure and they're using the food bank, or 36% of them are working full time. That should shock all of us, and we should do better than that. And that's on the business community. And so I would love to be, if I could wave a magic wand, I would fix that first. People who are striving to get ahead should be able to get ahead. But statistically, it's harder and harder and harder. And so we as a society can't ask the nonprofit community to fix that. We can't ask philanthropy to fix that. We've got to look at this in different ways, and we have to be innovative. And so as times change and as the government makes different decisions, again, I guess my ask is to make those decisions thoughtfully and to understand the impacts. And I really think our community needs to better understand the impacts of what federal funding means. As this shifts, we'll see it. And some people will not fare well with the changes, and we'll have to figure out as a community, how do we deal with that?
Your comment about just thinking about how different organizations in theory shouldn't exist because the problem shouldn't be there. It reminds me of a time when I worked for my alma mater's alumni affairs. I was on the phone with an alum. They were very excited to hear that the soup kitchen that they volunteered at was still there 20 years later. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I love that there's something you can connect to. Open your wallet. How do you want to get back to the school? But then upon reflection, I was like, this is actually not a good thing. We should not be proud that we still need a soup kitchen in our college town. But nonetheless, I really appreciate you answering that question.
Yeah, I think from a community foundation standpoint, we always talked about internally and strategically, like if you want accolades, as a community, like if you feed people, I mean, we need to feed people
yes, of course,
who are hungry. But if we put all our money every year into soup kitchens, and we do that really well, in 100 years, we'll be putting all of our money and doing really well at soup kitchens. And so we have tried to hold ourselves accountable to more of a strategic, systemic approach to, how do we approach philanthropy? Where do we put dollars? And what can be transformational? What can eliminate the need for the soup kitchen? And you can, we're still dealing. We're not checking off a lot of boxes of success, but that's our intent is looking long term at this community to make it better. And our tagline is or winning aspiration, we call it, is emboldening extraordinary community for everyone. And equity is a huge part of that. And the idea that you can be in this community and experience it based on your race, experience it very differently. And we worked in partnership with a number of organizations about 2 years ago on the Lancaster County Racial Equity Report. And there are numbers that you just don't see on the top line. You might read in the paper that there's a 9% childhood poverty rate and think, oh, well, that's horrible. 9% is too high. But if you're Black or Latino, it's 27 and 28% respectively. So it's like you cut one level deeper. And so our what we're trying to hold ourselves accountable to is how do we create opportunities so that every single person who calls Lancaster home, who engages in Lancaster anyway, can thrive, can experience an extraordinary community. And not everybody needs our help, but some people do need our help.
Yeah.
And so we're intent on finding those folks and those groups and creating pathways to success and to thriving and to extraordinary.
And it sounds like one step in that process is to inform your community. And so that, I didn't know those statistics, and granted, I'm newer relatively to the Lancaster community, but that's really important information to know because that makes me think about how I continue to invest in our community to create an extraordinary community, which leads me to something that you implemented within the Community Foundation in 2012, the Extraordinary Give. And what I think is really interesting
Wow, that was a nice, sweet transition.
Thank you. Thank you. But as I said, I did a deep dive. In an interview you gave in 2012, you stated, and I quote, "If 15 to 20 years from now, we are able to do 25 million worth of grants every year, think about what we could do with those dollars," end quote. Now, based off of my research, the Community Foundation stewards more than $200 million in community assets to support Lancaster County every year. How do you feel about that transition, and have you thought about it?
Well, if you read that carefully, I said 25 million in grants. We're nowhere near that yet. So we are still growing.
We're still growing.
We're still growing. You know, when you think about the community, well, look, I think in that time period, a lot of things have happened that have been good, and a lot of things have happened that have been challenging. The foundation has grown spectacularly. The 240 million that you mentioned, that's endowed assets. So it's not money that comes and goes, it comes and stays. We invest it, and we then take a piece of that. It's about 4%, and we put it out in the community in grants, but it'll be here forever. It's like when you think about like in 10 years, and that's our role. The Community Foundation is the keepers, the stewards of our community's endowment. We have over 600 funds, 600 people, families, businesses, and organizations have come, including Attollo, have come to us and said, we want to build for the long term. We want to commit for the future. We celebrated our 100th anniversary a year ago.
Oh, I was at that celebration.
So think about this. 100 years ago, no community foundation, no grants, and one person going to the chamber and saying, we should invest in the future. We should put a marker down there. Doing this thing in Cleveland, and that's where this stuff started 10 years before us. And it was an attorney, Martin Harnish. And so those folks got together having no idea who we were and what we would be doing 100 years later. And 100 years later, here we are, millions of dollars coming in and out, millions of dollars of grants, programs and initiatives, you know, that you can see everywhere. You know, I look at every day I walk in or bike around the city, and it's like there's bike lanes and all this, you know, walkability, bikeability. And I think back 15 years ago, we brought Jeff Speck, worked with High Foundation and Steinman Foundation to bring this expert in city walkability, bikeability. And here it is, you know, 15 years later, it's here. It's like it's changing. And so that's the role. The role is to think about the future and to try to build the future. And you know, question everybody. You know, or encourage everybody to think about what in 100 years, what do we want people saying about us? You know, when they look back at 2025 and they see the Community Foundation and they see this organization, they see this community, what are they going to say about us? And what's our legacy going to be? And how can we leave a positive legacy, both financially and you know, just from a vision standpoint, and taking care of our community that will resonate and echo 100 years from now. So that's the beauty of the Community Foundation. Our work kind of changes and evolves. It's reflective of needs and opportunities in the community. And Extra Give was one of those things where it was like, it wasn't our idea. It was actually Kim Shorter, our chief operating officer, who saw Pittsburgh do this for a couple years and said, we should do this. She said it 3 years. It took me 3 years to finally say, okay, let's take a swing at this. So yeah, that's how that all kind of got going.
Interesting. And I think it is doing a great job, at least in the whatchamacallit, lose my words. The informing our community about the nonprofits that exist,
yeah, for sure.
Especially because there's a component of the Extra Give that highlights organizations that have the most donors raised, which, who was that again this year? I think that was Attollo, yeah, okay.
I think so. And yeah, so in 12 years, basically think about this, in 12 days over the last 12 years, $110 million has come in and gone out through Extra Give. And I'll just, one thing I'm really proud of, the Community Foundation has never taken a penny. The Extra Give is our largest single expense line every year. We invest this, it's how we have an endowment. We choose to use our discretionary assets to put a platform out there to enable hundreds of organizations to connect with tens of thousands of people and raise millions of dollars. It's a no-brainer, actually, for us. It makes so much sense, because one of the things that we're trying to do is inspire philanthropy and to bring people into the community and make people proud of our generosity and of our community, and I think and celebrate that generosity. And you know, for the organizations like Attollo who are participating, the money is really important. And so I look at that, I pay attention to it, but I don't have a goal. Like, we're not trying to raise 10 million or 5 million or 15 million. This is up to the community. All we're trying to do is put the platform out there, celebrate our community's generosity, and the big thing is to invite more people into the game,
Absolutely.
into the joy of giving. It's like the number one reason, and in Lancaster, I don't know how anyone could say this, but the number one reason people give for not giving is nobody asked. So I wanted to take that excuse off the table. We're asking everybody, and there's one day you can do it, but there's also 364 other days. Not trying to corner the market on philanthropy with Extra Give. There's opportunity today to support all kind of initiatives, including Attollo.
Absolutely. And so in that same interview, you talked about how we've been around, at that time, 89 years, now over 100 years. But at the time, no one really knew about you. In the nonprofit world, we know that the more people who are in front of you, the more impact you'll be able to have. Yeah. So how do you increase visibility? How did you increase visibility of the Lancaster Community Foundation? And I guess for organizations like us who are starting to enter that post-startup world and into like, okay, we're really gonna run with this, how can we continue to increase visibility?
That's a really, really great question. And we were largely behind the scenes. I mean, if you were a nonprofit, there were years where we were a group that wasn't in the public at all. You'd slide applications for money under the door, and maybe you got a check, at some point. And that was pretty much the extent for years. And I think our intent was to come out of the closet and be engaged in the community, do better work locally. And for a community foundation, this is pretty unique to the community foundation. I think maybe it translates to others, but we had to be everywhere. We had to be in the community. We were really working hard to showing up at organization events, up at community events, being present, being able to tell one person at a time, 3 people at a time, 10, 30. I went anywhere and everywhere the first 5 years, and still continue. We have a small team of 15. We try to be as many places as possible. Like your grand opening, and it's like we really make an effort to show up where we can. Unique to the Community Foundation, I can remember thinking about, like, should we do an ad campaign? Should we do billboards, and should we spend some real money on like getting the brand out there? And we had just rebranded, and then we decided to do Extra Give. And so Extra Give was our way of getting in front of everyone. So people didn't know us, and so what better way to get to know somebody but to put a platform together, invite nonprofits, and basically be able to say to everybody in the community, look, we care about what you care about. See, we're going to do this. We care about, it's a handshake to the community. And the hope and I guess the byproduct of it was people came in to Extra Give and they said, what's this thing, the Community Foundation? So when you have 40,000 people give, and some of them are going to ask the question. And so we really, rather than spending money on advertising, we spent money on an event that really embraced the community. We did it in 2012 as a pilot. I mean, we didn't even trademark Extraordinary Give. We actually had a problem with that after that, because it went so big, it went so well that certain people grabbed up like Extra Give. I don't know. I don't even know like how it works, but we ended up having to pay them a couple bucks, and we trademarked it. We've recently taken it from Extraordinary Give to just Extra Give to make it a little bit streamlined, and it's a heavy lift for us as a small organization. It takes a lot of volunteers, a lot of our staff time, and we do a lot of other work throughout the year. But it's been we love it. We love it, and we love the fact that we're able to give it really as a gift to the community. And we're really lucky to have the High Foundation and Murray Foundation and all the other corporate partners who've come along to be able to do the prizes and the incentives and all that stuff.
So I'm hearing it's a balance of making sure that you're marketing yourself so people know who you are, so that they are invested in participating in the second part of that, which is hosting events for people to be invited into your space and learn.
Could be. I'll answer the question more directly. That's not related to Extra Give. You walk into Attollo, the colors, the look, the feel. This is a brand that you've created. It is super well branded. And it's not just the look, it's the sense that you get from the people that are here, that you feel the care, you feel the positivity, you see the quality, and that's, I think, the starting point. Because if you can invite people into this space, and if you show up, and in every space that you show up, you bring this with you.
Yep. That
quality, that care, that passion for Attollo, you have a brand, and that's the first step. People need to, in any way that you connect with them or they connect with you, you have to exude your brand and your mission and your purpose. And if you do that, it'll resonate. People will resonate. And while you're doing that, if you take the network marketing approach, where it's like, all right, I know you, but you know all these people. If you like what we're doing and you think it's quality, the more important thing in Extra Give, to me, is even more important than the money, is the network effect.
Yep.
So it's like, you make a gift and then tell your network, I care about this organization because. That's powerful. I've often said over the last 100 years that coming into Lancaster County, it's like, it's so apparent the humble nature of this community. This community is just super humble. So many times I'm having conversations like, I want to do this, but I don't want my name on it. I don't need any credit. It's like, that's great. Give any way you want, and you get to control that. But our humble nature is as much of a admirable trait as that is. It is the enemy of inspired philanthropy. If you want to inspire people, you need to be able to talk about what you care about, what you value. So the idea of giving, whether it's, if you're giving $100 and you're saying, don't talk about this, you gave $100. On the other hand, you give that $100 and you say it to your friends, family, coworkers, I value Attollo. They're doing this work, and this is why I'm committed and why I made that $100 with those words attached can turn into $10,000. Because your friends and your family are going to hear you, and they respect you, and so I often encourage people to talk about what inspires them, talk about what they care about, talk about their values, share it with their family. Start with your family. It's easy enough. Talk about that stuff with your family, but that was part of the beauty of Extra Give. It was a day where everybody talked about it. It's like we didn't do this behind the scenes. We did it all, and it was all about, the joy and the celebratory nature of giving.
Absolutely. So I have one more question before we open it up to the audience, and that is, thinking back to 2008 when you were in your interview for this role, you mentioned not knowing who's who in the room. Well, now you are the who. You are the person that people know in the room because you've created so much visibility, which is a great thing. But how do you navigate being the person that people now want to talk to? Yeah,
that's
full circle.
How do I answer this question? It's a blessing and a curse. It can be challenging to go out to dinner, at times. My wife can get frustrated because I can't get from the front door to the table and that kind of thing sometimes. But it's really a gift. The idea that if I can help someone, then it's worth it. If I could wave a magic wand and be anonymous, I'd wave it. But I do. There's an ego boost to it, and there's like price to pay.
Yeah.
But I do think I go back to something we talked about earlier. People want to help. Yeah. And if people have challenges, or if people want to bat opportunities around, and I have to have a gatekeeper, and because we had 452 organizations. So all those organizations have people. There are 565,000 people in the county. I can't sit with everyone for coffee, but as I can, I try to do it. And probably half my advice is worth throwing in the trash can, but maybe something sticks, and again, I think if you can help people, whether you're visible or not, if you have a gift, if you have a talent, share it. It goes back to, not being anonymous, being present for other people. And, I won't pull my phone out and show you my little grandson, but I have a 3-month-old grandson now, Roman Lee. And, he embodies to me my purpose and the idea of leaving a legacy and making the community better. It's what, if everybody's about that, if everybody decides my purpose is to make this community better, and we're gonna make a community that embraces every single person, no matter who they are or where they came from, they're gonna be embraced in this community. If every single person made that commitment consistently, the world would be a different place. And we have a lot more people, I think, per capita in Lancaster County who think that way than in a lot of communities I've actually lived in. So I think that's part of the secret sauce of Lancaster, this pride in place. And we have a lot of work to do, and we have our issues, but it's like we're a roll up your sleeves kind of community, and let's get it done. And all I'd say is, share that story, share your passion with others so you can inspire other people. And that's part of that visibility piece, is the idea that it comes with a responsibility. And the other piece of it is just being thoughtful about what you say, how you show up. I think that's a good thing for everybody to do. I think when the further you get out into the community space where people recognize you, you have to be thinking about that. And so, taking care of your own reputation first, your organization's reputation, and being authentic, being who you are.
Absolutely. I want our high school students to really listen to that last part, but I'll open it up to the audience now for questions. Yeah, Lydia.
I had a question. So you mentioned coming from a community that didn't have much opportunity, and now you have many, many years of experience in executive level positions, right? So how did you jump from those two worlds, I guess, and just immediately after college going into that world?
It's a good question. I always had visions of grandeur. I always thought I was something. So I never doubted myself. And I did, the place I grew up, my dad owned a business. He was a small car dealership, probably 10 cars at a time at his car lot. And he did it for 60 years. He just was relentless. Wasn't an innovator, but he was persistent and relentless. And he taught me the value of hard work. He is a worker. He used to joke, because I used to tell him I wanted to own my own business. He's like, it's great, you only have to work half days. 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And he did. That's how he survived and how he grew up. And so I learned that lesson early. If I had to give, my daughters followed this advice ultimately, but if I could do my path over again, I don't know that I would do it over again, but I would love for kids who are graduating college to kind of put a couple bucks away and to, instead of chasing a job to a place, chase a place to a job. If you love Denver, Colorado, or if you love Lancaster, my daughter loves San Francisco. She now has her business in San Francisco, and she made it. That was an intentional move to go to place and then build from that place. That is a brilliant way to start, and because, and again, we talked about it earlier, there are natural headwinds or tailwinds. You can be in a community, you can be the same person in a different community and have a different outcome based on what's happening in the culture, what's happening in the dynamic of the community. My decision to leave Shamokin, it'll always be where I'm from, but I could never have been what I wanted to be, staying there. So I never had, like, I have to say, I've been jealous years to, I run into people all the time. It's like, oh, you grew up here, you went to high school here, and then you're in Lancaster, you got to be here. Like, I would love to have been born here, could call it my home and like go from there. But I had to get out to be able to be who I was. So I went to school, and then we had Justin, my son, who is now 36 years old and has his son, Roman. I had to grow up real fast because I went from being a failed college student to scrapping my way back through college, playing in a band and like doing that sort of thing to like, I'm dad, and so I got the responsibility religion real quick. And when we went to Connecticut, it was Linda, Sam, and Justin, and that was it. We didn't have anybody else. That was the best thing for us. Kind of got thrown right into it. And the MBA helped, but it's not always the answer. It's a door opener. It doesn't give you all the answers. It really was a great experience to be with other people and do case studies, but all that stuff, kind of learned a little bit from it, bits and pieces. But it really was a door opener for me more than anything. And I've been lucky. I mean, this job really, finding me was the most fortunate thing that could have ever happened to me career-wise, because it introduced me to Lancaster and gave me the opportunity to be creative and to be entrepreneurial without necessarily owning a business.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we probably oversee just how rough Shamokin really is, honestly. I've been to Shamokin. Has anybody else been to Shamokin here?
Yeah.
Nope.
And don't mistake Shamokin Dam, because that's like 30 minutes away. Shamokin is...
That's like as real as it gets, right? Still to this day in 2025, it's probably the most poverty-stricken community in all of Pennsylvania. So I think given that context, it makes a little more sense. Like when you talk about getting out from Shamokin, everybody's trying to get out from Shamokin.
The real estate value in Shamokin is the lowest real estate value in the country.
Right.
Like, you can buy a city block for $20,000. You don't want it, but and wish it well. But there was, as one person, there's not, you need to be in a space where you can thrive.
Right. But what, to piggyback off of that a little bit, I mean, what do you love most about Lancaster? I mean, you've been here for a long time. Alex sees you walk your dog and walking past him.
He's working, I'm walking.
Right. So I wonder what like your joys are here in this community, and where do you, if a person's newer to Lancaster, only been here for a year, what do you advise them to explore?
Oh, there's so much. I mean, I'm a city person. I grew up in a row home. And so I like the city. I like the compact. And this city is just something, like I'm on Shippen Street and I walk my dogs and I can walk out my front door. I have a park across the street, and Musser Park. My wife and I can meet up with friends at 75 different, I mean, I can leave my car in the garage for a week, and just kind of like tool around. I can also, and it's like you walk around and you hear different languages being spoken, and you see different folks, and there's something for everyone, and so I love that. And there's a Starbucks, but there's also like 7 or 8 like local coffee companies, and there's all this local, and there's a connection to community, and then I could jump on my bike on Shippen Street in the city. And in 5 minutes, I could be on the countryside, like in farmland, and that's like I love doing. There's a covered bridge bike ride, like a 33-mile bike ride where you go through under 5 covered bridges, and so I love that about the community, that you can, in one place you have the city dynamic. My daughter lives in San Francisco, in the Haight. Right off Haight-Ashbury, off the Panhandle of the park. Lancaster is not San Francisco. We don't have the Golden Gate Bridge. We don't have the Bay. We don't have, there are things in San Francisco that are completely unique to that city. But if you're in Cow Hollow in San Francisco, and you just walk around and like look at like what you're looking at, like where you're living, it's Lancaster. It's like there's like 20 of them, but in that city. But you know, Lancaster downtown is a cool downtown, and it has everything. And I love the fact that, you know, if you're here a year, I guarantee you there are things that you have not seen because they're like down alleys and you don't like who would ever go there, and it's like a big thing. Like, you know, I go to the Horse Inn, which is on Fulton Street out a ways. It's like, well, I've never heard of the Horse Inn. Like, where is it? It's like, I can hardly describe where it is, but it's close to where we are. So I just love that. I love the context that we're in a city, but we have you know, vibrant farmland, and we have this county that's growing. Unlike I think most of Pennsylvania, I think we've grown a little bit, which is good. So yeah, you get the best of both worlds. And if you love New York City or Philadelphia or DC, I mean, it's an hour train ride to Philly. It's like it's a great place in and of itself. It's also the day trip capital of the world. You go anywhere else in this country, and you don't have the immediate access to what we have within a 3-hour window. It's kind of amazing.
Very true. We have time for one more audience question, and Joanne, I saw your hand.
Yes. Throughout your talk, you mentioned a few times that you've been very lucky at certain times about things finding you, and I wonder if it's, you know, much of the kind of like your humble nature saying that, like how much of it has actually been very intentional of you putting yourself in the right place for the right things to find you versus just completely just sheer luck.
Yeah,
things finding you.
It's really, you know, I answer that with the luckiest people I know are the hardest working people I know. I mean, so you know, the preparation, like the relationship building, the learning, you know, getting to a place where people would notice you. I think I did all that. I think the surprising part to me has been where it's taken me. I didn't, you know, I don't think anybody in the country sets out to be the CEO of a community foundation. It's like you kind of have to meander your way to there. You know, who does that? There are 900 of them across the country, and there are 899 of them that I don't want to work at. But there's only one that I want to be a part of. If I left this, I wouldn't do like, oh, I'm going to go to the community foundation in Raleigh. Like, no, that's not going to happen. But the idea of doing the right thing as much as possible. Everybody's going to make mistakes along the way. Learning from your mistakes. I learned a lot from the things I failed at. You know, I learned a lot about myself. You know, I talked about failing to acquire a business, even though I had the resources, I had the people. I didn't get it done. I couldn't get it done. But along that journey, I learned, you know, more about what I really wanted. And the other thing is, I'll just point this out because it's really true for me. Sometimes other people see more, or just see you and see your possibilities differently than you even can recognize. It's almost like the forest through the trees kind of a thing. So having great people to talk to and get advice from and just kind of bounce ideas off of. Again, I wouldn't be CEO of the Lancaster County Community Foundation but for 3 people who I deeply respect, recognizing the potential and encouraging me to pursue the opportunity. I would not have paid any attention to it. I would have missed it completely. So I think the other thing is being open to opportunity, like being open to doing new things and trying new things. And you know, I have a regular practice at the end of each year of taking a few hours at least over the holiday and saying, all right, you know, next year's coming up, like, is this right for me and am I right for it? Like, am I gonna be excited, you know, at the end of this year? Am I gonna accomplish what I wanna accomplish at the end of this year? And I might not know exactly what that is, but I try to frame in my mind that, you know, and question whether I'm in the right spot, because you got one shot. you know, I'm 59 years in, you know, I'm running out of runway, you know. So like right now I'm thinking about, your mindset changes because as you come up, you're thinking what you're going to achieve and how you're going to, you know, do more. And, you know, you get to that point where you're really kind of doing it. And then at some point you're starting to think about, you end up having a grandson or granddaughter, and you start thinking about legacy. You start thinking about, how do I share what wisdom I've accumulated over the years with other people so that they can be successful and carry this forward. So I do so much more, and the word coach didn't come up, but that's probably my passion. You know, coaching soccer, and coaching my kids and coaching my team, and, you know, being doing that's always been maybe my gift. Like doing things, I'm not as good at doing things as I am at kind of coaching other people to get things done. And certain people have that gift. So yeah, I think preparation, open to opportunity, you're always interviewing, you know? You might not know it, but you're always interviewing. I have a list that I don't have written anywhere, just in my head, of people I would hire for anything. Those are people who have like just come to me in different ways and just so impressed me. It's like, if I have something open, I would love to have them in my orbit, because they'll make me better. So if you be that person, opportunities will find you. It's funny that you say you're not good at doing the thing, because you're a four-time marathon runner. So that's kind of crazy. But just to kind of close this out, I often feel like I'm starting to change this thought pattern, but I am still stuck sometimes in seeing people in leadership as untouchable or not relatable. So my final two questions for you. What is your favorite marathon that you ran to really help connect with our audience here? Well, it's not even close. I ran Big Sur Marathon 20 years ago. It was my personal best, 3:40:42. Not that I have a good memory for that. Not that I'm competitive. So I was at that time, I was something like 10 minutes or so off of qualifying for Boston. But that's another story. Big Sur is absolutely, my favorite part, my daughter lives in my favorite part of the second favorite part of the country outside of Lancaster. You know, San Francisco and the Monterey Bay Peninsula, that area it's otherworldly. So go to Big Sur, drive up Route 1. That's the marathon route from Big Sur to Carmel. It's net uphill into the wind. It's the hardest marathon I ran, but I was in really great shape. I was in the best shape of my life. Wanted to qualify for Boston, signed up for Marine Corps, eventually ran Marine Corps 6 years later, wrecked on a mountain bike, had back surgery, had another back surgery, and I ran Marine Corps 6 years later in an hour slower than what I had anticipated running it 6 years earlier. So life can change really quickly, and this is not a marathon body right now, but it's the one I got.
I appreciate that. I'm currently in my hold signs at a marathon phase. Maybe one day we'll get there. And then my last question for you is, as a former lead guitarist, what is your favorite song to play?
Oh, favorite song to play? Anything. I love playing Led Zeppelin songs, and I love playing Dave Matthews songs. I love learning new songs. I have a carpal tunnel thing going on that I can't play, which is driving me crazy because it's my stress relief. Yeah, I noodle a lot. I love music. I love all kind of music. Like I just love music. It has a calming effect. Playing music, being a lead guitarist. I played in a band for 7 years. It's kind of not what it's cracked up to be. It's all weekends and late nights. And at that time, it was like smoking. I feel like I didn't smoke, but still, it didn't matter. And you're lugging gear. I mean, it's not like you're the Rolling Stones. I didn't do that. So it's fun. Although I made money with the guitar. Most people can only make money with a guitar by selling their guitar. I actually made money with guitar. It was better than delivering pizzas. So anyway, I didn't really even answer your question. But
you got some artists out there.
You led with like leaders as untouchable. It's like they're not good leaders if they're untouchable. I mean, to be a good leader, you have to be touchable. You have to be in the community. You have to understand who you're with, and so my experience has been over the years. The leaders that I've known and some of the wealthiest people I've known are some of the nicest people and most caring, committed people. They got to where they are because of that, not because of, being cutthroat.
That was a great way to end it. Well, anyways, thank you so much for being here with us today,